Good morning, Brian with Grand Roofing. We're going to look and see why this leak occurred. We're up here doing this job, getting another one worked in. It's Friday, September 22nd, 23rd, somewhere around there. Anyway, we're going to dissect this and see what may have caused this issue going on here. Switch camera around, see what we can learn. So there's a brick wall coming up here. We're going to talk about that, but we're looking at what caused this roof leak here. Above it, there's a 12-12 section, a little triangle hip area here that ties into a valley, which is about an 8-12, which is what I'm standing on. And we're going to see why this leak occurred and see if we can learn from this. You don't always have a setup section like this. When we do, I call this a return. I don't know what you guys call it. That's what I've always been taught here in my area. So you got a soffit that comes into the roof and a fascia board. And I can see a piece of flashing. Obviously it's leaking here. It's been going on for a while. It's been soaking in all the way down here. So there's usually two types of leaks. One, really bad, really quick, goes in, drops your ceiling. Second is just moisture getting in over time, prolonged period of time, and it just starts soaking into everything, rotting it out like this. So we're gonna see where the original leak came in at. I think I already found it. There is flashing here, but this is the old mill flashing, which is like a 2-inch by 2-inch by 5 or 6-inch. When the shingles went from a exposure of 5-inch, if you are going from a standard American 5-inch exposure to a metric, which is like 5 5/8 or something, you need to replace your flashing. Otherwise, every time you come up, your shingle rises compared to the old flashing, unless it's not nailed off and you can adjust them. You really need to get the larger flashing, which is going to be a 4-inch by 4-inch by 7 or 8 inches tall. That'll get you to where you can actually put your flashing down on the headlap of a shingle. Your next shingle goes down and they're going to lap each other. So if you were to imagine a piece of flashing under this shingle, then this shingle, that flashing piece will go from the reveal up past the common bond. That shingle goes down and your next piece will lap not just onto the shingle, but laps the flashing under that you can't see. Those have to be lapped. But the issue we have here, there's two things I see going wrong. If you look up under here, you can see where somebody cut this shingle. I imagine what they tried to do, it's common, you've got to cut an L-shaped shingle so it can shove up under this return here. Well, if you're sloppy with your cut and you have that cut come down farther, any flashing or water off this flashing is going to run right in there. So that's a big area where this started and originated from. It did have paper. I don't know how high the paper went up. It looks like there is some there. And because of capillary action, it can actually work up a little bit. Let's look up here a little higher. Got another piece of flashing, but it is the old school, like I said, 2-inch wide, 2-inch high. It's very possible it could have been coming off as well. But the lap I'm talking about, see how this one comes over and laps that and the shingle in between? It's important that your flashing is lined up correctly. It is completely dry above it. Nothing worked up past about this point. So I don't think it was anything they did wrong with the actual valley piece or the flashing. Nothing was coming out behind this. I doubt. It looks like it's up plenty high. Something we are going to do here is we're going to take this cap off. We're going to cut this back a little bit because there's a lot of debris getting caught right here. Well, if you have debris build up right here and you got the valley coming down, it's potentially, I guess it is possible that it could hit the debris and back up essentially. Ugh, I can't even speak. Ice dam, you've probably heard of ice dams. Ice dam is nothing more than where you get moisture coming down over a section where the conditions are right, melting because your heat in the attic rises, it melts it, comes down, gets over a soffit edge where there's cold ambient air from the winter out here and it will freeze a block of ice. Well, if it's just right conditions and you got water coming down, it'll freeze and back up. It's essentially like that, but it's nothing to do with the conditions being right and the weather and the temperature. It's a debris, a blockage. So on a lower slope roof, you'll see a valley section sometimes when you're driving, just look for this. You'll see a lot of debris built up. Certain types of trees drop these little strandy-like things, it'll clog it, and over a prolonged period of time, it decays, breaks down, it just gets this thick, sludgy crud, decaying. What that can cause is water flowing down the valley hits it, essentially an ice dam, but it's like a debris dam and backs up under your shingles. So if you have a roof that's low slope, you see things like that, preventative roof maintenance, clear that stuff off. It could save you a possible leak. I've seen several this year already. I think I've done some videos of it. We'll look at this wall here too, if I don't get stuck on a nail and tear my jeans. So I want to point something out here. This home, I'm guessing, was built in the 90s. And most of the time when I see a home being built, or we're doing the roof years later, you'll see flashing that's kind of hidden under the brick. So they'll typically put the roof on, then the other trades come in and will brick it and all that. I don't see any. I chipped this away to see what's going on. I see the paper, the Tyvek behind the brick, but I don't see any flashing in here. I looked up under, absolutely no flashing in this wall. That's not what caused the leak here. The evidence is pointing to the concentration of the leak originating right there. The reason that's not leaked over the years is probably due to two primary things. One, there is a little soffit. It's only about I'd say a 10-inch soffit overhang. It's not much. You add a little bit with the gutter here. So the majority of the water just falling misses that. I've seen that where it leaks sometimes. Then the second factor you're looking at is what side of the wall is this? This is facing kind of north. So most of our winds blow in from the south and the southwest, or from the south to the west this direction. So it's not gonna be wind driven hitting the wall here. If this were a southern side, I'm sure it would have been developing issues over the time and running in here. They have tried to caulk this over the years to try to prevent the leak further. There's a little room in here and a knee wall that they can get in. They could see that this was rotting out, but I don't think it had anything to do with that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get this all, we're still prepping, clean all this down, replace all the wood. You see a little seam right here. From here, this is a bad sheet. The one I'm sitting on is bad. This one's bad. And that next one is fine. So that's not gonna be an issue. It'll be from here down. When we go to roof it, we're going to put our first starter row, put the flashing on, then the first shingle, and then it's gonna be shingle step all the way up out on the face of the brick here. It'd be the 4-inch by 4-inch by, I think it's 7 or 8 tall. Once that's done, because there's no way you're gonna add flashing back here, there's none whatsoever. So what we do at that point, when the job is winding down, we're shifting manpower around, we're gonna actually crack a line. You can do this one of two ways. You can stair step it, or you can actually make a straight linear line. So check with your customers, see if they have a preference. On a long run like this, a straight line is easy. Some people disagree and don't like that. They function the same. It's just a matter of, do you want the look of the stair step coming up the brick here? Either way, what you do to do that is you're gonna take a masonry wheel. We use the little DeWalt grind wheels, a little right angle drill, grinder. Oh, I can't even speak. I'm trying to pay attention and watch what I'm filming here too. It's a wheel with little notches to carry the dust out, but it's a diamond dope powder when they manufacture it, so it will cut the brick away. You'll just grind that in, make a channel, however you do it. You'll bend your aluminum counter flashing with a lip into it, and it will plug in there, covering your flashing. We call that part there that goes in counter flashing. Once that's in, you're going to use keys and lock it in, which is nothing more than a piece of rolled up aluminum. You're going to shove it in there and you tap it in to wedge it in. It'll just kind of friction lock in, and then you'll put a bead of silicone caulking down it. So, it's going to add a little bit of work here, but it was known about, was figured in. And then this gutter here, something I think I mentioned, we're going to take this cap back, we're going to cut it back so that debris actually doesn't gather. It'll flow through to kind of prevent that. We'll do a quick walk over here so we got going on. Ready to pull this to the dump, back the next one in. It's not a hard job. You got a couple 12 sections here. So you got a 12, and on the other side is a 12. But at least you can transition around the sides here on 8s. So if it wasn't for this front side and that front side, it'd be a bit harder. Yeah, so it gets pretty steep. This is a 2-story, and then this section here is a 3-story drop, so you want to make sure you're careful. All the gutter guards are yanking. We're going to replace those once the job's done. Gutters cleaned out. A couple of the corners we're going to check in caulk and silicone, and then put the new gutter guards on. Vents, we're going to open these up a little bit. I've talked before about different things when it comes to ridge vent. So actually right here's a really good thing I want to point out with ridge vent. When you have OSB that breaks like this, if you want to open this up to ridge vent, you can't just yank this. There's going to be no room for your nails to hit. And if you did cut it just a little bit, that piece of OSB is so small, it's not going to be rigid. It's, just walking over it can break it and snap it. With the center ridge beam here, I talked about that in a video we just did the other day. You wouldn't be able to vent enough to breathe on each side because that wastes some space, and then you're dealing with the fact that it's a thin piece of OSB. If it's 1-bys, it's a different story. The other factor, if this is steeper, so typically a 12-12, 2 opposing facets, there are 12 slopes. By the time you take your ridge cap, keep in mind it's built up, it's a little higher profile, the radius of bending around there reduces the nailable space you have. So I don't like doing ridge vent on steep stuff. Prefer ridge vent, I think it works better if you have a long enough ridge. That's the other thing. So from that side to this side, we're looking at one sheet of wood. There's 8, there's 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's about 12 foot. By the time you bring your hips up and wrap the 2 hip sides, you're gonna have probably about 10 foot usable space. Just not a lot when you factor in that center ridge beam. So this one actually quoted for the box vents. We're gonna open these up bigger because they're not quite big enough. Let's see if there's anything else we can learn here real quick. Somebody commented yesterday, I might make a dedicated video. He was talking about drip edge. I can't remember the guy's username. Actually, you know what? I will do that. I'll just make a whole nother video on drip edge. If you want to see that, let me know, comment down below. I'll give him a shout out with his username. His question was something about he agreed on everything I was talking about, but one, in the fact that he doesn't agree that edge metal or apron should be used on the bottom. I'll go into a little more detail in that specific video, maybe put his name in the description there. I'll keep it a short video and kind of talk about why. Around here, a lot of guys just bought one material, no confusion, just throw it down and go. The downside with drip edge instead of apron on the bottom, two really, is it comes down, takes up precious real estate when you're looking down the edge of the roof. It reduces the amount of gutter you have to collect. So if you got a 5-inch and not a 6-inch, you're wasting about a 1/2 inch just for that. Hopefully you hold your shingles down. His question was the apron, it will drip down getting into the fasteners into the gutter easier and eventually route those out. The second thing with apron as opposed to drip edge on the bottom is the apron goes up higher both directions, so it's going to cover more deck and allow ice and water to seal a little bit better. So if you want to see that, let me know. Either way, for him, I might make a short video and shout out to him. So, all right, we're going long, 10, 11 minutes. Time to wrap this one up. If you guys want to see some more, let me know. Let me know what you like to see, and I'll try to bring more of it your way. Until next time, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one. Happy Friday.